Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. My name is Ian Morris and I'm chair of the board, and welcome you all today. And just before we get started, I would just like to bring a couple of notes to the table. Could I ask people that might have electronic devices that aren't on silent to please turn them to silent? I would ask directors and people who might be at the lectern to please speak up when you're speaking or when you have the floor. I'm told the sweet spot is about 4 to 6 inches from the mic, and we're having some trouble hearing directors on the live streaming, on the recording. So please be conscious of that. I'd also like to note that we are meeting today in the territory of the Coast Salish people. And I'd like to also welcome today alternate director Goddard, Manhas, and Duncan to our table. And with that, we have an agenda before us. Move to approve the agenda, seconded by Director Sebring. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? There's none opposed. The motion carries. Next item, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The adoption of the minutes. Recommendation is that the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 24th, 2019 be adopted.
Moved by Director McGonigal, seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? There's none opposed. That motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is not.
Next, we come to the public input period, and I would like to welcome anyone in the gallery who would like to provide input to the board to please come forward. The public input policy is on the screen, as you can see, and just up, and each individual has 3 minutes, and the segment is 15 minutes long. And I would ask you to turn the microphone on. And I also just so that you know, this is public input. We won't be answering questions or engaging with you. It's just for you to provide input for the board to consider. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, that's too close, isn't it? Good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Thompson. I'm a resident of Cowichan Station, and I'm a past board member of the Hub in Cowichan Station. For those of you who don't know, the Hub is a volunteer-run community facility. It provides arts, recreation, and culture activities, as well as just a place for the community to meet. It's mainly run by volunteers, and it's a thriving success with about 500 people every week using the facility with just 2 half-time people as our staff. I'm here tonight because I know that somewhere on your agenda you were planning to discuss a motion that's about restricting gas tax funding, the use of gas tax funding to only CVRD-owned facilities. And I'm just here to give a pitch for the economic wisdom, I guess, of supporting community-run facilities with our tax dollars, and to ask you to not close the door on that possibility. I certainly understand that the CVRD has priority for those gas tax funds, and that you have a lot of, you have a backlog of public assets that need those funds. However, there are times when a community-run facility, such as the Hub, or there's probably one in every one of your areas that's mostly run by community, there's times when things go wrong, and perhaps a gas tax grant, a small infusion of a gas tax grant, could make the difference, so that we, being the community volunteers, can use those funds to match and bring in other funds to keep it going. And just to put a quick number on this, am I at my 3 minutes, Mr. Chair? Okay. We have to do calculations for grant proposals and reports all the time. I happen to know that my own volunteer time, and I want to say, I'm not saying this because I want to sound like a martyr, but I happen to know that my own volunteer time over the 6 years that I served on the board was valued at over $100,000. And I was one of 5 people who gave that much time. So that was $500,000 right there that I happened to know about at the Hub. And then there were many other volunteers who gave a lot of time, right? And so right now we know that we have about $1 million worth of volunteer time that's been invested at the Hub. And no offense to any CVRD facility, but we don't do that for CVRD-owned facilities. The community doesn't step up and volunteer in the same way when it's a government-owned facility. So when we have community-run facilities, you know, it happens all over. I know I'm not at all unusual. That's why I'm making the point. I'm, you know, like, there's lots of people like me in this region. We're blessed with really hardworking volunteers. And community facilities are a great way to leverage that with CVRD dollars when necessary. So I'm just asking you to not close the door on that possibility in the future by restricting those funds to only CVRD-owned facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
My name is Joanne Kane.
You can bend the microphone closer towards you, so
Okay,
there you
instead
go.
of being on my tiptoes.
Welcome.
My name is Joanne Kane. I live within a kilometer of the proposed biogas development that there's an application in for at the CVRD. I just wanted to say that a lot of us in the area are very, very upset about this proposal. We've all been studying really hard, trying to catch up on some of the rules around biogas and some of the impacts of other biogas plants around the world. We've discovered that there are many, many accidents. There are many, many odor problems, even when you know, developers and others have promised that there would be no odors. There are health risks. There's risks of water contamination. There are at least 2 aquifers that run under that property. The Canadian Biogas Association has just released new draft guidelines for the industry which say to avoid putting these things in residential areas. They also talk about the depth above which or below which an installation like this should not be on top of an aquifer. I think it's something like 150 meters, and I don't know how deep those aquifers are, but I suspect they're not that deep. We're very concerned, and we're hoping that you guys will not approve this application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bruce Boyd. I live on Pemberton Road. I too, as you can tell from the T-shirt, are as deadly against this proposal for the biogas plant. The proponents stipulate that this is an on-farm application, but everywhere we look and all of the documentation on this says it is not an on-farm application. It requires fully to be involved with an industrial site. As Joanne just mentioned, there's numerous documentation out there with regards to how this biogas has all sorts of issues. There's been over 800 accidents, recorded accidents with the biogas installations. And for us, we all will continue to fight this as long as we can. There's a fairly large group, and it's growing every day. The more people look into this biogas, it's not the green biogas that everybody likes to think it is. It has issues. It was currently just said by CBC that this is the new coal of the generation. So I'm just here to voice my distrust in this whole situation, and do hope you vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Don Drake. I live on Killapai Road. As a senior citizen, I am concerned with the equity I and my senior citizen neighbors have in the equity of their properties. And we know for sure that equity is going to drop if this proposal goes through. If our equity drops, so does yours, because that's how you get your tax money. And you can be sure we will be lining up to get our taxes reduced when that happens. I am a retired farmer. I moved here from a farm in Ontario. I did put new buildings on my farm. The minimum setback from a property line in Ontario for any farm building, regardless of what its use, is 100 feet or 30 meters. Why? They learned odor and noise is no respecter of a property line. This applicant has put diagrams out on information they have handed out to us with a setback of 15 meters. If you, in this area, are going to be the first plant put on this island, I would hope you're going to look at what regulations there should be and setbacks, because if you get it wrong on the first one, anything that follows, if it's supposedly a good idea, is going to be more difficult than ever to proceed with. So consider those facts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my biggest concern, my name, by the way, is Kate Morrow, and I also live on Killipie. The summer months, as we all know, are drought-ridden. It's very scary when we don't get rain for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the location that is, the location that's been chosen for this application is surrounded by forest, basically. There are many, many homes, but there's many, many more trees in very close proximity. And I find, I'm terribly concerned about the possibility of fire, either from an inadvertent explosion or from flare-offs, because in the summer months we don't use very much gas, and there will be a necessity for frequent flare-offs. And I think that presents us with a huge risk factor, as well as the aquifers. The CVRD sign is at the north end of that property, I'm sorry, the west end, right on Telegraph Road, says we protect our groundwater. And it's right there at the top end of the property. So that's it for me. I hope that you will take all this into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Believe we've got time for a couple more. Welcome.
I'm Dot Garbett, and I live on Killipie Road, and so this is in my area. And I would not want all those bad things that I'm hearing about biogas farms to be near me. So I am deathly against it. I really am. And so are my neighbors.
Thank you.
My name is Andrea, and I live on Killipie Road, as does my family that I live with, and we are all against this development. I was very disturbed when I saw the sign go up, how it very conveniently stopped, the proposal stopped at the separation between Cobble Hill and Mill Bay, which is La Fortune Road, so that no one on the Mill Bay side was aware or had been consulted in any way, shape, or form about what the heck was going on the Cobble Hill side of La Fortune. So there was no consideration about the fact that every time I drive down La Fortune to get to my home, I have to go by this development, proposed development. It is going to put concrete structures on farmland. I believe that the current thinking is that that is not a good idea, to take farmland and to put concrete buildings on it, that we are to preserve our farmland as we need it. It's desperately needed for food or animals, whatever. So I don't like the idea of reprogramming farmland. I worry about the air quality, I worry about the water. We're all on wells. I worry about the traffic, the trucks. They're huge, what they're proposing to bring in. How are the, what kind of infrastructure does the Cowichan Valley have to support that in terms of road damage? The folks who live on the corner, if one of those big semis goes around the corner and slides in the winter, it's going to end up in somebody's front yard or in their house. So I think there's a lot of issues here that are not being respected and I'm very much opposed to this, and I'm grateful that my neighbors are too, because we are a united front against it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask you be the last speaker, and I don't know if you noticed in the, well, I'll make a comment afterwards, but go ahead, please, welcome.
My name's Andre Desotel, and my wife and I own 5 acres of ALR on Telegraph Road, adjacent to this property where the biogas plant is being proposed, and I am very concerned about it because we're on the downhill side at the lowest point near their property. My research has shown that there's been a lot of ruptures of these tanks and spills, and we have a well there. We also have the beginning of what I believe is Waste Creek that flows through there, and it's all on the downhill side of this property, so that if there are any problems, the waterways, which are less than a kilometer from the ocean where they empty out into Saanich Inlet, will be affected by that. So the smells, we've had one of our people go over to Abbotsford and check out the 2 biogas plants that are there, and the odors were evident about 2 kilometers away upon them approaching the plants. And they're the exact same style of plant that's being proposed here. And there was just one in Colorado that got shut down recently that had over 600 complaints from residents within about a 5-mile radius due to smells, and it was the same kind of biodigester that's being proposed for this one. So I would just like to state that I'm very much against this.
Thank you very much. And just to note for everyone, a number of these people, and I think one in particular, was in communication with me over the weekend, and I had encouraged them to come and attend, but hadn't realized they were all going to show up today at the board meeting to address this. This wasn't on the agenda. I fully acknowledge that this item wasn't. But when they were all here and obviously had something to say, I thought it was appropriate, as opposed to turning them away, to give them the opportunity to share their concerns. We haven't yet seen this file come to committee, so there will still be a fair bit of deliberation that will happen, and you are welcome to attend that committee as well, the Electoral Area Services Committee. And thank you for coming today and providing your input, and I thank my colleagues for listening to what they had to say. With that, next item on the agenda, we go to delegations. And I would like to welcome Carmen forward to present to the board today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and the board, for having me tonight. It's great to be meeting here on the traditional territory of the Cowichan tribes and Coast Salish people, and so thank you. I think that I just want to say I can feel the heat of the yellow shirts, and just implore to you that we're all here to create better solutions for our future. So today I'm here to talk energy. So I am my name is Carmen Dreichel. I'm the Community and Indigenous Relations Manager for FortisBC. I have the great pleasure of knowing a few of you, and like in so many of our local governments, we have lots of new faces, so I look forward to meeting those of you who I haven't yet. In my role as Community Relations Manager, so I am here on Vancouver Island, and I'm sort of your contact. I describe our positions as the bridge between different levels of our customers and our communities and the machine that is FortisBC. Lots of that machine and our business teams are located in Surrey and Kelowna, but I'm your person here on Vancouver Island, so that's why I stand here today. I'm not a subject matter expert in RNG. I'm here representing FortisBC and our business and how RNG fits into the piece of our business and energy solutions for our province as a whole. So I think I'm supposed to put this on and get this going. So fancy. So fancy. So for those of you that maybe don't know, FortisBC here on Vancouver Island and throughout the rest of the province is the natural gas provider. We serve, in addition to that though, what some people don't know is that we also generate hydroelectricity in the Kootenays and interior of BC. And so we have the entire province served by natural gas. We have an area of the province where we're the sole hydroelectricity provider, and then we have what we call our shared services territory where we provide both energy sources. So that being said, we serve over 1.1, almost 1.2 million customers now, which makes us the largest energy provider in the province and gives us a really unique look into how energy is used, how our communities and our customers need energy, how it fits into our everyday. We have 2,200 employees and serve 135 communities. Part of our solutions are natural gas, electricity. We also deliver propane and are the utility in our province that also is committed to innovations in alternative energy. We're in the process of developing a large solar project in the interior and also looking at hydrogen and how it will be a part of our renewable energy portfolio in the province. As the province was creating our new Clean BC policy, FortisBC published our Clean Growth Pathway to 2050. And in this document, we looked, again, with this unique perspective across the province at how we can make sustainable, long-term, affordable energy solutions that will achieve our collective climate action goals to support us into the future. Through this document, and I'm happy to provide a link to that document after, we really implore taking a collaborative approach and using all of the energy infrastructure we have in this province to create a lasting and feasible opportunity long term. And really, I think, to me, the words that stick out from this pathway, and it's a plan, not just an idea or goals, but it's a plan on how we can get there. And it's about using all of the tools in our toolbox. And we are here to partner with local governments and our provincial government to create those real solutions. So at AVICC and in a lot of our regional government sessions, we have declared a state of environmental emergency, and that has all of us working together to figure out what does that mean? What can we do? How can we implement, we hear words like immediate and decisive action to create climate goals. And so at FortisBC, I just wanted to run through a few things. We have a series of teams that are targeted to different aspects of energy to help work with you. So energy solutions, I think a lot of you have met my colleague Saraz Dalmer at AVICC and UBCM. Saraz and his new coworker, Marilyn, are committed to our local governments. So they work with local governments to look at local government operations and facilities and how we can best make sure that you have access to the programs that help with energy efficiency and GHG reductions. In addition to them, transportation is key. Transportation across the province is our biggest source of GHG emissions, and we have a team in Surrey that's committed to working specifically on this target and helping local governments and our regions make those GHG reductions in a transition away from diesel fuel. While a transition to a fully electric environment may seem at the surface like an easy one-stop solution for climate change, we're working closely with the province and other energy providers to make long-term and realistic look at what that transition would mean in practical and sustainable terms. How much energy would we need to electrify our communities? Space heating, space cooling, transportation, and where will that energy come from? These are the real tough questions that we need to work together to find the solutions for. With a unique perspective, we're hoping to collaborate with you to create those solutions. We believe that building sustainable and affordable, responsible long-term solutions take a collaborative approach. I got myself a little bit out of order here, but in transportation, for example, I just wanted to comment that FortisBC is just finishing the installation of a continuous EV charging network through the Kootenays, connecting the Kootenays to the Okanagan to the Lower Mainland. Energy and electricity will provide a key component to our light-duty transportation and how we use it. Our transportation team, though, has been using natural gas and compressed natural gas and renewable compressed natural gas in our transportation sectors here on Vancouver Island. We have the benefit of the environmental benefits of partnerships with BC Ferries, C-SPAN Ferries, Cold Star. Our waste haulers here on Vancouver Island largely are fueled by compressed natural gas, and it's an opportunity for us to make a huge impact on GHG emissions with just one fuel switch away from diesel. So we're here to work for you. Again, as I'm not the subject matter expert, I'm here to connect you with those teams and work with the CVRD in how we can create bigger GHG reductions here. And then there's renewable energy and our very own renewable natural gas. The call for more renewable energy plays a key role in the Clean BC plan, and we are committed to continued innovation to bring more renewable energy to BC. We partner with production and delivery of renewable natural gas, and are again looking at solar and other renewable options, including hydrogen. Pipelines and natural gas are pretty testy words right now in a lot of conversations. I was at a recent council presentation and somebody used the P word when talking about the lineup of people on the agenda coming up to speak, and the person that said pipeline was actually admonished a bit for using it. And I just wanted to share with you that here on Vancouver Island, natural gas was brought in about 1990, and we have the great distinction of having a very robust and modern natural gas delivery system. So here in renewable natural gas, just to give you a bit of a background on it, it is made from renewable sources, so waste. We take waste in the forms of organics, landfill gas, agricultural waste or wastewater treatment. That goes through a process of anaerobic digestion, which I heard earlier, and some other technical things. It gets up to pipeline quality, then it's injected into our pipeline, and then it's delivered to any customer of FortisBC. There requires no upgrade to that pipeline, no changes on the equipment, the use on the other end. That gas is here, and every bit of renewable natural gas that we put into our system is less traditional natural gas that we need to buy off the market. So in line with the Clean BC plan and our commitment to supporting renewable energy in the province, we need more renewable natural gas. And so this is where we're reaching out to our local governments. Landfills are typically a very accessible and ready source for renewable natural gas. The proposed system project in Cobble Hill is a very unique situation where you have an independent farmer who understands water quality, land use, continued and long-term sustainability, and he's coming forward and presenting a project to again add to our provincial commitment in a climate emergency situation. We currently renewable natural gas is available to our customers. I just wanted to note that it is available at a premium to traditional natural gas. However, in terms of space heating, it's been shown that even then with high efficiency equipment, RNG is less expensive than hydro rates currently in space heating application, which is good. Our local governments, like the City of Victoria, the conference center there runs on 100% renewable natural gas. The runners or the business of that facility installed high efficient natural gas equipment and decided on a business basis that running 100% renewable natural gas still afforded them a significant cost savings through that building, and then they get the environmental benefit of 100% carbon neutral fuel source. In another local government in the CRD, our energy solutions team was working with them, and with an upgrade to high efficient equipment in buildings, they also then realized that the cost savings from just the efficiency gain allowed them to easily afford, again, RNG to be used as a fuel source in that. With regard to the Cobble Hill biogas facility, I am not going to comment technically on that project. It's not a FortisBC owned, it wouldn't be a FortisBC owned and operated system. We would simply buy the gas produced at that facility and then inject it into our system at the gate, let's say, of the farm. We would have a station and it would go into our system. I did just want to comment on how it fits into our provincial energy picture in that it's very significant. Currently, FortisBC has 5 biogas facilities running across the province. We've been running this program. We are the first utility in North America to make it available, but been running it for 11 years. Those 5 facilities currently produce about 250,000 gigajoules of natural gas a year. This one agricultural and organics project that's proposed here will provide 100,000 gigajoules of natural gas. That's about 29% of that overall load, which is huge. It's a significant contribution to climate action in our province, and something that I, as a Vancouver Islander with 2 small children, and look at to how are we going to be able to afford to live in a cleaner place, can be very proud of. I think that in working in some public information sessions, I think that it's admirable, I think, how the project is being presented in a very open way to the community. these people live here. They live in your communities, they're part of your communities, and they're trying to build solutions that are good for them, for their kids, for your community, and down the road. So we, as FortisBC, tours were mentioned. As a board, you obviously have some interesting and complicated decisions to make. We're here on the technical side. I'm happy to connect you with our RNG team for any of the technical questions about safety, reliability, and provide a tour if you'd like of the Delta, the facilities that we have in the Lower Mainland that are easy to get to. We're here to help you on that side of things as you kind of work your way through those decisions. And I think really that's about it. So I think for technical questions, I just would refer to the cobblehillbiogas.com website. I think that it's just that we need to know that it's a significant contribution and how we can work with you to make that happen. We're here to help.
Thank you, Carmen. Are you prepared to take a couple of questions?
For sure.
Excellent.
As I can. Yeah.
Director Marsh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Carmen.
Yeah.
Hi, Carmen. You said that the Victoria Conference Centre runs on 100% natural gas.
Renewable natural gas.
Renewable natural gas, right. I remember talking to Saraz quite lengthy, and it was my understanding that the renewable natural gas gets put into the infrastructure that has the conventional natural gas. So it's mixed. There's no one, you don't turn on the tap. So are they paying a premium for renewable natural gas?
Yes.
But in accuracy, there's a bit of renewable natural gas mixed in within the system of the, okay.
Yes, it's notional, right? So if we think of it, oh, sorry.
Just, if I could just say, like, I guess it just feels a bit like it might be misleading to some people and cause kind of friction, so that I wonder if there's a way that Fortis could educate, because it seemed, I know for me, when I heard first what Saraz was saying, I'm like, wow, we could do that, wow. And then when he explained it, I thought, oh yeah, well, so I don't know, I think we need some more education.
Yeah.
Probably.
For sure, and I'm happy to connect. We have, we call them our street team, so they're a team that goes out to public markets and things like that, that we can work, where they can share just on a very comfortable community sort of level, the information about renewable natural gas. We are happy to give any presenter, any presentation to, however, with the team.
Right, so
Follow-up?
if I may have a follow-up. I haven't had a chance to read this, but I did see the article that was mentioned earlier by a member of the public on CBC. I saw that there was one that was saying, where did I write those notes? Something about this is the new coal, implying that it's not as clean and as we are being led to believe, and I don't know if that's true or not. So are there people in your company that can explain that to councillors, and will they be doing it at UBCM? Because I don't imagine you're looking all over the province for these kinds of things.
Yes, yeah, we have two others in consideration, and actually quite far along in the process here on Vancouver Island. It is a tricky thing to wrap your brain around where the molecules of renewable natural gas are in our system. I'm happy to comment on that too, with regard to the new coal and that it's not as clean as it's renewable natural gas. Our renewable natural gas has been certified 100% carbon neutral. Our hydroelectricity, FortisBC generated hydroelectricity, and the other generated electricity is not carbon neutral. Renewable natural gas is certified carbon neutral, 100% carbon neutral. There's no net new carbon in the creation of that energy source. It's made from waste. There's no additives to it. It's made from waste.
Thank you, Director Marsh. Your microphone. Director Sebring.
I'm tempted to pass, but I just wanted to make the same observation that Director Marsh made. I mean, you're charging a premium for this RNG if I want to use it in my fireplace, but it's coming in the same pipeline as the regular. It's all very notional to me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Some of this doesn't make sense. I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Sure,
Is
go
that
ahead.
possible? Yeah. We are a very heavily regulated utility, and so as we were the first utility in North America to bring renewable natural gas as even a notion our regulator said, what the heck is renewable natural gas? And so we had to prove to them that the processes can be built and that it can be delivered to our customers and not have them, our customer, because the cost of our operations or our distribution system is shared by our customer base. And so we had to prove to them that it wouldn't cost more than traditional natural gas. Obviously, it's a process of making and buying it. So it started out at a premium. The price has come down as our regulator gets comfortable with the business models. As more business comes online, that price is coming down.
But if I
Follow-up?
may, I mean, a follow-up then. If I'm a Fortis subscriber, and I'm not, because you're gonna have to blast through a bunch of rock to get a piece of pipe to my place, but that's another issue. If I'm a subscriber and I decide I don't want the renewable natural gas and I choose not to pay the premium, I still may be getting some of that renewable natural gas in my supply because it's all part of the same.
That's right. You're
Spider
getting the
pipe
benefit
network.
of the rest of our subscribers. I subscribe 100% in my home. I don't know what. We have a unique situation here on Vancouver Island, being at the end of our system, that when I'm sure that some sources are very soon going to come online, we probably will, all of us, whether you're paying or not, have the benefit of actual molecules of carbon neutral energy feeding our home. And so as that happens and as we get more in our system, I'm not a mind reader or teller of the future, but as the regulator gets comfortable with that, I think we will see our prices come to parity. We've had to prove it. We've worked very hard at making these projects work and safely and reliably delivering that energy to customers every day.
So this is a function of the regulatory thing, not your price.
The price issue is 100%, well,
Okay.
I'm sure you probably
All
say
right.
that, but.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Director Smith.
Through the chair, thank you very much for your presentation. I was just recently at a meeting and they talked about the forestry and the leftovers from that area, and a fellow did a presentation regarding something very similar to this, but using the leftovers from the forestry harvesting. Is there anything going on in that direction with Fortis? Because he seemed to indicate that there was.
Yes, it's a huge area that I'm very excited to watch how this goes. I think, again, as a pretty biased to island business, we have 2 right now pulp mills that are sitting empty with anaerobic digesters on them. It's the same process that's used to make it. So I'm excited. The technical pieces, I think they call that biosolids, the wood waste that we have. We have a tremendous opportunity with supply of fuel and how we now figure out how we extract that energy. It's not, as I understand, through the cellulose and the fibers of the wood. It's different than how we can easily take it from like manure waste or organics. But absolutely, it's a big area that we're working on with, in collaboration with a lot of partners to figure out how we can access that source as fuel, for sure.
Director Stone.
And not to beat a dead horse, that would probably create some good natural gas and decomposition. But in the reason that these are certified, and this is not a judgment based on my own personal opinions on the use of natural gas or GHG reduction or anything, but waste product creates GHGs and it's decomposition by nature. You can either harness it or you can let it go to the atmosphere. If you harness it and burn it, it actually reduces its GHG final output. Because when it's burned, it breaks down and creates lower GHG emissions than it would if it just decomposed naturally. The RNG thing, there's a certain percentage of the LNG that is supplanted by the RNG feed that goes in. So say if 20% of the province's gas was renewable natural gas, people have the option to buy that 20% portion at a premium. When that runs out, you can no longer sell it at a premium. And whether it's regulatory or otherwise, whether it's notional or otherwise, it's pretty easy to justify if you have a certain percentage generated from renewable sources that you can sell that portion at a premium. Yes, it's mixed into the system, but I get the logic of it. I don't think that, I looked up that article and there's several response articles from, frankly, just as biased a source, right? I read that, it was an editorial, by the way, that said now clean natural gas is the new coal. And there's editorials on the other side that say this is, by apparently scientists, right? So I think in the moment, it's unfair to our presenter and to the people from the public for us to make judgments without all of the information. And I do look forward to the actual project coming forward and understanding it more. I'm not sure if as a municipal director I would have a vote on that. But I just want to say to our audience members and to you that, I appreciate the input, and I think it's really important for all of the board to hear that. I just would think it'd be unfair to make judgments in the moment when we haven't had a chance to really dig into the information. I appreciate the offer to provide scientific information to those who want it, and hopefully we'll be able to do the same for people who are concerned about it and opposed to it, because I'm not necessarily hearing the GHG thing as being the opposition, but the concerns around groundwater, health and safety and quality of life for people in the area. And I think that as a land use authority, that's the most important thing to the members of this board. And I know that everybody here takes that responsibility very seriously. So I just want to say thank you for not only this, but all the other work that you do on behalf of Fortis, and, not to sort of throw some thanks over to the people who've shown up here as well, but, I appreciate input on all sides.
Director Salmon. Pass. Seeing no other hands, I want to thank you again for coming. I want to ask, are you planning on having a booth at UBCM this year?
For sure, we'll be there,
I
yes.
think you'll be getting quite a few visits from people around this board, and I know I'll be one of them. So
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you in September in Vancouver.
Yeah, can I just make one more comment?
Absolutely.
It is going to take all of us, right? All of us working together to find a solution going forward, and safety for sure is a big part of it. And we do work very closely with our local governments, our emergency services people. We just did a full-scale exercise here at Mount Hayes LNG facility. So it is something that FortisBC takes of the utmost importance, is to make sure that the products and services we're providing British Columbia are safe and reliable.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Next item on the agenda is report of the chairperson. I will be brief, and I just want to note that we had a fantastic announcement and event last week and weekend in regards to the CVRD's acquisition of Butte Island, and I want to thank staff for their fantastic work in that acquisition in our regional parkland acquisition portfolio. I understand that we had an event on Sunday where Ladysmith Group was providing trips over to the island for people to explore, and that from what our staff tell us, it was very well attended. The boats were full and people had a wonderful time. So I want to thank staff and it's believe the Ladysmith Maritime Society for working with us to promote that great purchase. So that's a great bit of news. Another item that I have in regards to, well, this is just two more items. Had a chance encounter with our medical health officer, Shannon Waters, at the market here in Duncan on Saturday. And after we all heard the tragic news of the individual who had passed away from rabies from an encounter with a bat, apparently the Island Health is receiving quite a few inquiries and concerns about incidents involving bats, and we had a discussion about not only that, but also the concern that is rising around Lyme's disease as well. And Ms. Waters informed me that if anybody does actually encounter a bat or a tick on an animal or themselves, that the Island Health will actually take samples and send them for testing. So the idea would be if someone does, they should contact Island Health and they will tell them how the specimens could be collected and brought in for testing. And I know that it's a big concern, the incident and the recent death, but also the spread of Lyme's disease into BC. It's prevalent across a lot of other areas of the country, but I happen to know someone that passed away as a result of Lyme's disease, and it's not a pleasant condition. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If you have someone that brings it up, it's a concern, they can contact Island Health, and it's just over at the Round Building here, and they can help you with that. So with that, that's all I have as far as my report goes. And the next item on the agenda, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no correspondence or no items for information, so on to committee and commission reports. The report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of August 7th.
Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been requested to pull number 4.
All right.
So I will read 1 through 7 and omit 4 at the first go round and do 4 after.
Thank you.
So the report and recommendation of Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of August 7th is recommendation 1, a grant and aid electoral area B, Shawnigan Lake, in the amount of 500 be provided to the Coke-Sila Music Festival to support the 2019 Coke-Sila Music Festival. 2, that a grant and aid electoral area G, Saltaire, Gulf Islands, in the amount of $2,000 be provided to the Thetis Island Ratepayers Association for Thetis Island St. Margaret Cemetery restoration. 3, that the 2019 budget for the Function 117 Grant and Aid Area G be amended to include a transfer from the Area G Grant and Aid Operating Reserve of $3,000 and to increase, and an increase of $3,000 to the grants to organizations' expenses. Number 5.1, the 2019 budget for Function 355 Fire Protection be amended as follows. A, reduce transfer to capital reserve by $15,000, and B, increase capital expenditures buildings by $15,000. 2, the purchase of an eligible energy-efficient upgrade for the Malahat Volunteer Fire Department, such as heat pump doors, windows, LED lights, valuing at $15,000, be funded by gas tax reserves already allotted for Function 355 Fire Protection Malahat. 6, that short-term borrowing of up to $879,497 be approved for the construction of the North Oyster Fire Hall under Function 350 Fire Protection North Oyster, to be paid back over 5 years as per the liabilities under the agreement section 175 of the Community Charter. 7, that the 2019 budget Function 350 Fire Protection North Oyster be amended as follows. 1, reduce transfer to capital reserve by $84,578, increase transfer from capital reserve to $51,151, and increase capital expenditures / buildings by $135,729. 8, that the 5-year agreement of the Penelakut First Nations ending December 31st, 2023, the fire dispatch service be approved.
You're moving those items?
Yes, that was 1 through 8. My apologies, I said 1 through 7.
Seconded by Director Smith. Any discussion on those items? And this is all directors. Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just brought to my attention, just talking to my fellow director here, $880,000 is a lot to pay back over 5 years. Is it going to be huge tax increases, or?
Mr. Kieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the limit for the regional district to borrow short-term is 5 years, so we can't go over that. If the area wanted to have it longer, they would have to go out and get public consent to borrow money long-term. The director in that area chose to do short-term borrowing, so this is the maximum short-term borrowing that they can do.
Do you have a follow-up?
My concern is for that area is going to be large tax increases to pay that back over 5 years.
Mr. Kieber.
So, Mr. Chair, that area has been putting funding away in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $400,000 a year to go towards building the new fire hall. They are no longer going to be putting that money towards the reserves for that, but they will be putting that money towards paying the short-term debt. So there should not be any increase in the requisition based on this resolution.
Very good. Seeing no other hands, I will call the question on those items. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working with number 4, that the additional eligibility criteria for the 2019/2024 gas tax community works funds project as detailed in table 4.0 and 5.0 of the asset coordinator staff report to the August 7th, 2019 Electoral Services Committee be approved.
And you're moving that item?
I'm moving that.
So we have a seconder. Seconded by Director Kuhn. discussion. I'll go to Director Salmon first.
Thank you. I'm concerned about this item. It's a large dollar, $10 million over a long period of time, 5 years for the electoral area services. We did, a little background maybe, I don't think it's attached to our minutes here, but our agenda. At our meeting last week, electoral services, by a split vote, we approved the proposed new restrictions, I'll use the word restriction, additional requirements for the gas tax funding. The two main ones really, we heard from Jill about the hub in the beginning here. No, basically the new rules would say no non-CVRD owned projects would be eligible. And secondly, no new projects would be able, i.e. roadside pass, for example, will be eligible for any of the gas tax money. So, this is on the heels of, we did have quite a discussion about the 60-30-10, agreed to that. So this is after the fact now, we're putting in new restrictions. So, given the size of the amount and the length of time, I'd like to move that we send this back to electoral service for another discussion, make sure we fully understand the implications of the new policy. That's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor, and my understanding is you want to send it back to committee, so that would be a referral motion, and I'm not sure of the intent. Are you just wanting to redebate? Is there a specific reason to send it back to committee?
Well, as I said, the size of it and the fact that it was a split thing, I have a feeling from that we may want to make sure we fully understand all the implications and possible scenarios of this, the new restrictions.
So I can only receive this as a referral motion, which we can't debate the merits of other than the propriety of referral. Is there a seconder for a motion to refer? So we have a seconder. So other than the propriety of referral, whether or not this merits to be referred back to committee, Director Wilson.
Yeah, I'm seconding.
Okay. On the propriety of referral, Director Sebring.
In one sense, referral makes sense to me. In another sense, I'm not sure that it does. I don't understand this file now, and I'm not sure that if it goes back to electoral services and then comes here in this format, I'm going to understand it then. This is kind of a point of order for staff. It does me, as someone who's not a member of the Electoral Area Services Committee, who doesn't see those agendas, it doesn't see those minutes, it does me no good to see an item on an agenda that says the additional eligibility requirements, et cetera, as detailed in Table 4 and 5 of the Asset Coordinator Staff Report to the August 7th Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. We've talked about this before. I don't feel I'm making decisions here based on fulsome information. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you, Director Kuhn.
Well, I feel we had a fairly thorough discussion the last time around, and the issue was basically if some of the money should be used for...
Director Kuhn?
Yep.
It's just on the propriety of referral,
right.
not on the merits of the
Okay.
discussion. Director Marsh.
Yes, Director Sebring makes a good point. I neglected to go back and look at the electoral area services meetings of August 7th. I didn't read that staff report. I heard very clearly from Ms. Thompson, one of the many volunteers of the hub, that this might be something that we might regret. And so I think it is proper to refer it back. I would like, since it's within my responsibility to vote for it, I would appreciate having a chance, and I own that I could have gone back and done that, and I didn't. I'd like to go back and look at those minutes, and I'd actually, yeah. So I think it's very appropriate to refer it. I think
Thank
we
you.
want to get it right.
So just before I go to the speakers, I've got Director Duncan and Director Stone. I just want to add, I was going to actually address this under the question period. if you will look on your agenda, there was a question about linkage to background material for reports. And now at the heading of the committee report, there is a link where individual directors and the members of the public can go and read the attached information that will provide background for items that will be discussed at the board. Now, this is just a recent development, just wanted to provide it for everybody's information. Director Duncan, on the
apology, Mr.
propriety
Chair,
of
I
referral
missed that.
of this motion back to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I support referral. I don't feel I have enough information on hand to make a decision.
Director Stone.
I just wanted to point out the link because I found it and I was like, oh, there it is. There's the agenda and all the staff report and everything. I guess then the question's begged, how did we just vote on the other 7 items? If we didn't know any information for this one, we obviously voted on the other 7 without information, but I'll leave that as it is. But the links are in there to review the previous information.
Seeing no other hands on the propriety of referral, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Let's count the opposed. Morrison, Sebring, Kuhn, Manhouse, McGonigal, Yanni DiNardo, and Stone. Does that make 7-7? The referral motion fails. Back to the next motion. Director Nicholson.
Well, I'd like to amend the motion. I'm not quite sure how to do that because I'm not sure which table it was, but I would like, as detailed, are the criteria in table 4 or 5? In table 5. So I would like to amend it to say with the exception of criteria number 1 in table 5 at the end of the motion.
Okay, so can I just?
Point of order, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
we gotta find out whether that changes the intent of the motion, which we just.
I can't find table 4 or 5, even with the links that were
Yeah.
provided here.
So just hold on for just a second. We're gonna pull the table up, see if that has any dramatic change to the, let's see. Just gonna, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess. There's, that proposed amendment was proposed at committee and was defeated, so we're just gonna get our ducks in a row here. So, take 5 minutes. Can I have the board back to their seats, please? So just very briefly, can I have your attention, please? Before I go to Director Nicholson, couple of comments. The board has supremacy to do what it likes with a committee decision. Essentially, the amendment that's being put forward was a defeated amendment that was attempted at committee. So the board has every right to do that. I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to go to Mr. Keeber next, but I'm going to suggest that best practice in this case, I believe, is to support the policy and improve the policy. Now, this board has the ability at any point in the future, if there's a worthwhile and worthy project, to come forward to the board, make the case, waive the policy, and support a project like the hub or any other project that doesn't fall under the policy if the proposing director can convince their colleagues that that's a worthwhile thing to do. But I do believe that this is a worthwhile policy to endorse. Now with that, I'll go to Mr. Kieber, and the first on the list will then be Director Nicholson. Mr. Kieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this relates to the Community Works Fund. This is phase 3, or the third leg of the Community Works Fund money. It started back in '05. Each year, they seem to change the criteria, or each term. So the table 4 and table 5 that are being requested here, recommended as part of the criteria, are in essence what staff are wishing the board to follow. There's criteria that you can't waiver from the community or from the gas tax agreement. Those are requirements. We can't waive that. That's just, there's projects as well as expenditures that have to be met. These additional criteria are simply things that staff are recommending that we feel are best practice to allow the board to best meet their asset management requirements. There's a huge deficit. The feeling was this would help the regional district meet those requirements going forward. Director Morrison, or Chair Morrison, is correct. The board has the prerogative to waive their policies at any point. They do that at certain times, waiving purchasing policies as an example. So you can do that. But these are criteria that the staff are recommending to allow us to better meet our funding requirements for our current assets. Thank you.
Go to Director Nicholson.
Thank you. So where am I at with my amendment?
We haven't accepted the amendment motion yet. If you choose to make an amendment motion and get a seconder, we can consider that.
I'd like to make an amendment motion, and then I'd like to speak to it.
And the amendment motion would be?
That the additional eligibility criteria for the 2019-2024 Gas Tax Community Works Funds project as detailed in tables 4 and 5 of the Asset Coordinator Staff Report to the August 7th, 2019 Electoral Area Services Committee be approved with the exception of criteria number 1 in table 5.
Is there a seconder to that amendment motion? There is a seconder. Director Nicholson.
So I feel that criteria number 1 is unnecessary. It's an unnecessary constraint. 40% of the Community Works funds have been allocated to asset management, to address asset management issues. 60% are allocated to electoral areas based on population. I believe strongly that the 60% that go to the electoral area populations should have the right to choose what projects in their communities will provide the best benefits for them. And they may or may not be related to CVRD owned infrastructure or assets or whatever. As long as they meet the criteria that are laid out for Community Works funds, and they are considered to be the biggest bang for the buck in that community, I think that's what should carry the weight of the day. And so I think this is an unnecessary constraint.
Thank you. I have a speaker's list to the amendment. Anybody else want on the list? Director Smith on the list as well. So Director Stone.
Whew, how am I going to tap dance around this one? So I concur that if, I'm trying to think of the best way I can explain this. If there's the allocations, as Director Nicholson just indicated, and this is a policy based on what staff and would consider to be best practices, I just want to read that number 1 again. CWF 3.0 should be used for existing services and infrastructure owned by the CVRD. Not must, should. The board and the committee have discretion to, the committee has discretion to make recommendations to the board to waive that part of the policy should a viable project or a priority project come forward. I often think of policies as the best framework and guideline of best practices, and it makes us have pause for thought and consideration should we decide to waive those policies in favor of a different project. Either way, materially, I don't think it makes a difference. If the policy is there, it says CWF 3.0 should be used for existing services and infrastructure owned by the CVRD. I will reiterate, does not say must, and it also could be waived if a project that was deemed valued by the director and the committee made that recommendation to the board would have the opportunity to adopt it.
Thank you, Director Stone. Director Kuhn.
I'm in favor of the policy that we approved last time. My concern is this. If we, in any large way, support projects that are outside the CVRD, then we are running the risk if the population in whatever area is affected, if the population decides, well, rather than renewing our infrastructure, whatever needs to be done, we want to prioritize another project, maybe a city hall or whatever. If push comes to shove later on, that population could be forced to do infrastructure project and the money isn't there, and then what? So my priority would be, it should always, the CVRD assets should be looked after first. And if anybody in that group of population wishes to spend money on another project, let them collect it any other way. But this is grant money, and the design was that it looks after infrastructure, and that's what it should be used for, not any other project.
Thank you, Director Kuhn. I've got Director Sebring, Smith, and myself. Director Sebring, and in regards to the amendment, please.
Thank you, and this is a perfect segue from Director Kuhn's comment. You know, part of this to me comes to the notion that local electoral area directors could have some autonomy in their areas and say, you know what, the money is best directed if you're Area E this year into the hub because they need it and it's not a CVRD owned facility, and I get that. But Director Kuhn asked the question, what happens if we do that for a couple of years, and whether it's electoral area E or someplace else, and we ignore the infrastructure problem, and then we have an infrastructure problem, and he asks, then what? And I'd like to direct that question to staff. If this gas tax money is repeatedly diverted into non-CVRD infrastructure, and then we have that problem crop up, whatever it looks like, what kind of a pickle are we putting those ratepayers in? Or does it create a problem for the entire board because all of a sudden there's an emergency in Cobble Hill and they can't be expected to foot it all themselves, and my God, now we're all paying. What does that look like? Then what? To pose the question the way he did.
Mr. Kiebert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, from my perspective, the reality is sorry, ratepayers, but you have no choice but to pay this increase because there's an emergency, your sewer system's falling apart, the roof is falling in, or of whatever the issue may be, that service must pay for that expenditure. It's not the entire board. You're correct. If the Community Works Fund money was available, the director for that area could use those funds to direct it, assuming it's an eligible project. If it's not there, then it has no choice but to go to the taxpayers, either in the form of a requisition or debt.
So in that case, just a comment then. I think it's prudent that we maintain our facilities. And if there is one-off policy exceptions for a particular year, for a particular project, we can always look at it that way, but I think this policy makes sense.
Director Smith.
Through the chair, I am frustrated with this table 5. I find that number 1, the word should is okay. I can agree with that. But I'm struggling with number 3 and number 4. And I'm not sure if we can make a friendly amendment to...
No such thing, and we're dealing with 1. So if you want to bring up 3 and 4 after we've dealt with this particular amendment, fair enough. We don't amend amendments. Hang on, we've got Kuhn, Yanni, DiNardo, Nicholson, but myself is next. So I'm just going to briefly state that I think there's enough flexibility in the recommended resolution from committee. I'm not going to support the amendment, and it's simply because if a community has an asset that is outside the realm of the regional district, that is operated by a third-party nonprofit association, we have grants and aid. You'll see in the budget upcoming that I am significantly increasing the capacity of my grant and aid to be able to support groups in my area, and it will be in my area only. And I think that for the specifics of how this program has been designed, that it makes sense to go with the policy that we look after our assets first. And as I said, if someone brings a worthwhile project and convince their colleagues around this table that it should be funded as the policy allows, then fair enough. I won't be supporting the amendment. Next, I have Director, actually, I'm going to go to Director Yanni DiNardo first. She hasn't spoken, then Director Kuhn, then Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to direct this to staff. What I remember from the Lamona report, and it really sticks into my mind. Who is responsible and liable when we haven't kept up our assets? For instance, if there's even our water, like who is responsible for that?
Mr. Kieber.
Ultimately, it's the board. Board holds the reliability.
Thank you.
Director Kuhn.
Yeah, I was going to get into that as well, and I want to just drive home again. If the population in any area wants to have a choice between should we do this or shouldn't we do it, the choice should not be on infrastructure. The choice should be on goodies that they want to have. And so for that reason, the grant money should be onto the infrastructure. And if they want to have something else, then grant and aid could come in, or tax increase, whatever. That's their choice, but not on the infrastructure. That should be a given.
Thank you, Director Kuhn. Director Nicholson to close.
So we have this asset management program, and we have some liabilities for assets that we own that we need to fix, that we've let deteriorate or that were handed to us in a bad condition. But generally speaking, when we don't have significant liabilities on something, we run a user pay system. And community works funds are for the benefit of all the public, not just a particular group of people who own a water system that needs some money. So I am really interested in the gas tax, and we're putting 40% into this asset management liability issue. I am really interested in the 60% that has some discretion in electoral areas to serve the entire population of doing what will be in the biggest, the most benefit for the community. And if I don't have an infrastructure problem in electoral area E that is a significant liability that is not addressed by the 40%, then I would like full flexibility to put the money into the best project. And I don't, this should is all well and good, and I can come and make a case and so forth, but to me it's an extra unnecessary step. If a project should be a project brought forward, any project we have to look at and decide whether it meets the merits. So to me this is like a very unnecessary criteria that sends the wrong message that, CVRD comes first. I think the community comes first, and what's in the best interests of the community. I'm really not happy with this.
Director Marsh? On the amendment, please.
Which is to take
Number one out.
number one.
Essentially, the amendment is to delete number one from the table.
And number one is that gas tax money should be used for
No,
existing
yeah,
services.
I've got it in front of me. I finally did find it. Well, it seems to me that there might be a way to, if this was defeated, to make another amendment that would add a bit to number one. I know I'm stretching it, but I just want to say it. That would read after owned by the CVRD, though the board may from time to time consider requests to fund particular community projects. And that seems to me that might satisfy both sides, but I guess I can't suggest an amendment to the amendment, as you said. I kind of believe in having a conversation where we sort of weigh, okay, somebody has that opinion, but what about this? So,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
And your point?
You just shut down Director Smith for trying to amend an amendment, and I think the same thing applies here.
Please continue.
thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm kind of thinking I heard Director Nicholson say that the CVRD shouldn't always come first. And then there's another way to look at it. Like, we are all, every property owner, commercial, farmer, residential, we are the CVRD, and including the citizens who live here. So of course we want the CVRD to come first. But that doesn't mean that in the best interest of the CVRD at any particular time, it might be putting it first to make a little bit of an exception of this policy. And so if we added, all I'm saying is if words were added that it's clearly spelled out that that's a possibility, to me it makes more sense.
You have that ability after this,
Thank
this
you.
is dealt with. So I want to test the House on the amendment. Is everyone clear? I've had the question called. On the amendment is to delete the number 1 off the table. I will call the question now. All those in favor? Are those opposed? Keep your hands up. Director Stone, Yenny, DiNardo, McGonigal, Manis, Duncan, Marsh, Kuhn, Sebring, and Morrison.
So
The amendment is defeated. We go back to the main motion. I will acknowledge Director Smith first.
I would like to make an amendment to the motion that number 1, number 3, and number 4 out of table 5 be removed.
Is there a seconder for the amendment motion to delete numbers 1, 3, and 4 from the table? There's a seconder. Do we need discussion on that item? Director Smith.
So number 1, we've had a bit of a full discussion on, but number 3, having the unspent community works funds for 3.0 be returned to the original project stream. This to me wouldn't be the best solution for the funding. And also number 4, the Community Works Fund 3.0 eligibility requirements will also apply to any unspent Community Works Funds 2.0. For me, I have Community Works Funds 2.0 that are currently allocated to the Thetis Island solid waste and recycle. If that money is removed and sent into the 3.0 stream, it will not be allowed because it is not a CVRD project. And there's issues involving with things on Thetis Island that both of these could cause problems for, and also for Area G. I can see it causing problems for other areas, electoral areas. I think it's really important that we acknowledge the communities and the efforts that the community puts in, and they work very hard to make sure that we have different facilities within our communities that are community-driven, volunteer time is put in, and we also need to acknowledge that through our decision today. So I ask that this motion be supported.
Two staff that want to weigh in. I will go to Mr. Kieber first, but Ms. Soldera as well. So Mr. Kieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, point number 4, money that's unspent of Community Works 2.0, that doesn't include money that's been dedicated and committed to projects already. So if the board has approved funding for a project, it may be not meeting this criteria, where you've already made those commitments, or maybe in the 2019 budget already. Now, this report was not written by me, but I'm fairly certain that they can't expect us to go back and rescind what the board motions have already made. I believe this is money that's been unallocated and unspent.
Ms. Soldera.
So just to confirm, my understanding is also the same as Mr. Keeber's. There's approximately $180,000 that has not yet been approved by the board to be used for specific projects. My understanding is that the intention of the report, and I also didn't write it, but is that the new criteria would apply to that $180,000. And just for clarification with respect to item 3, I think what was meant was just that funds that are left over. So if the board were to approve, say, a project of $500,000 for Area E, and Area E only spent $450, the remaining 50 would go back into the pot for Area E. I think that that's what's meant by that. It might not be as clear as it could be, but I believe that that was the intention when it was written.
Director, I had Director Kuhn on the list, but we've also had the question called. Shall I call the question? On the amendment that 1, 3, and 4 be deleted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Myself, Stone, Yenny, DiNardo, McGonigal, Manhouse, Duncan, Marsh, Kuhn, and Sebring. The motion's defeated. We're back to the original motion. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. Sure. Director Marsh?
May I try another amendment now?
If you feel the need, yes, please.
So that under Table 5.1, that it be amended to CWF 3.0 should be used for existing services and infrastructure owned by the CVRD, though from time to time, the board may consider requests to fund particular community projects.
Before I accept that, I think that's implicit in what staff have outlined in the policy.
I just think it makes it clearer, as I said
Mr.
earlier.
Keeber, was what she just suggested as an amendment implicit already in the policy?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not required, it's the board's prerogative. We can approve something from time to time if need be.
So you're not going to ask if there's a second?
Well, is there a seconder for the motion?
Okay.
Back to the original question. As presented, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Opposed, Director Salmon, Director Smith, Director Nicholson, and Director Goddard. The motion carries. We started at 6:30, it's 8 o'clock, where are we at? We have, does anybody need 5 minutes, or should we plow on through? All right, we have CR number 9. Director Yenny DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Electoral area directors only. And it's number 9, the covenant number CA 6129452, registered on title for 1287 Mile End Road, PID 004-570-553, be discharged.
You're moving that?
Yes.
Seconder by Director Smith. Any discussion? Seeing none, electoral area directors, all in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries.
That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Yanni DiNardo. turn to CR2 from this afternoon's meeting. Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is from this afternoon's meeting. Your Community Services Committee reports and recommends as follows. One, that the 2019 budget for Function 101, Community Health Network, be amended to bullet number 1, increase grants, general revenue by $66,938. And bullet 2, increase grants to organizations by $66,938. Number 2 has 3 parts, that the 2019 budget for Function 405, Couch and Lake Recreation, be amended to 1, increase transfer from capital reserve by $26,500. 2, decrease minor capital expense by $35,000. And 3, increase capital, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment by $61,500. Number 3 has 3 bullets. 1, that a land exchange agreement with the owners of Eagle Shores Land Subdivision to subdivide a portion of their land, lot Rem 1, Section 4, Range 7, Couch and Land District VIP 85643, to exchange it with CVRD Park Lot 6, Section 4, Range 7, Couch and Land District EP P50188, including a provision for an amenity contribution towards establishment of a public beach access that is mutually agreeable to the CVRD and the developer be approved. Try saying that twice fast. 2, that a bylaw be prepared authorizing the exchange of parkland described as CVRD Park Lot 6, Section 4, Range 7, Couch and Land District EPP 50188 for a portion of Lot Rem 1, Section 4, Range 7, Couch and Land District VIP 85643 for park purposes. And 3, that public approval for adoption of the exchange of parkland, I won't read those again, be obtained through an alternate approval process through an AAP. Number 4 has 2 parts, that the allocation of staff time to compile the total current number of parks / areas and trails that are owned and / or maintained by the CVRD, as outlined in the Director's report to the Community Services Committee on August 14th, 2019, be approved. And bullet 2 of that this type of data is continually monitored, updated, and made part of the asset management role. I will move those, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Director Sebring. Any discussion on those items from this afternoon? It was, yes. Seeing no hands, call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries. Does that conclude your report?
Thankfully, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. Item CR3, corporate services from this afternoon. Director Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Corporate Services Committee reports and recommends 1, that the 2019 budget for Function 131, Environmental Initiatives, be amended to decrease federal conditional grants revenue by $15,000, decrease provincial conditional grants revenue by $15,000, and decrease floodplain management expense by $30,000. And further, number 2, that the 2019 budget for Function 530, Couch and Flood Management, be amended to decrease federal conditional grants revenue by $36,125, increase provincial conditional grants revenue by $149,875, and increase project expenditures expense by $113,750. 2, that the 2019 budget for Function 100, General Government, be amended to increase transfer from HR Operating Reserve by $30,000, increase HR Consultants expense by $30,000. 3, that the 2019 budget for Function 100, General Government, be amended to increase transfer from IT Operating Reserve by $32,000, and increase contribution to other function by $32,000. That this 219 budget for Function 200, Administration Office, be amended to increase contribution from other function by $32,000, and increase capital, furniture, fixture, and equipment by $32,000. 4, that the 2019 budget for function 205, emergency planning, be amended as follows. Increase the transfer from operating reserve by $50,000 and increase to vehicles and machinery by $50,000. And number 5, that the investment strategy policy be approved.
And you're moving those? Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director McGonigal. Any discussion on these items? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries. And just for people watching at home, you may recall that we have recently passed changed our policy so that we are not generally bringing forward items from this afternoon's meetings to the immediate evening's board meeting, unless circumstances such as budget requirements or items are necessitated that they come forward to that meeting. And the items deemed here, except for maybe 1 or 2, were deemed to be necessary to come forward. So we will endeavor to sharpen up that policy in the future so that only those that are absolutely necessary that need to come forward will. Correct, Mr. Kieber? Thank you. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no director's report, so on to staff reports. Item SR1 is a staff report from Inspections and Enforcement Division regarding 6755 Couch and Lake Road Farm Table Inn. And the recommendation before you is that the CVRD has no objection to the event noted on the temporary change to a liquor license application 307218 for the Farm Table Inn, located at 6755 Couch and Lake Road on September 14th, 2019.
Moved by Director McGonigal, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, I will call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? There's none opposed. The motion carries. Thank you for that. Ms. Legault.
The next item on the agenda is bylaws, item B1. The first part is CVRD bylaw 4288, Ticket Information Authorization Amendment, Schedule 20, 2019, for first, second, and third reading.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Kuhn. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries. Ms. Legault.
And item 2 here is CVRD bylaw 4288, Ticket Information Authorization Amendment, Schedule 20, bylaw 2019, be it for adoption.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item BEA 1, CVRD bylaw 4258, Electoral Area A, B, and C, South Cowichan Official Community Plan Amendment bylaw 3625 Cobble Hill Road, 2019, for adoption.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Alternate Director Goddard. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Next item.
The next item is BEA 2, CVRD bylaw 4259, Electoral Areas A and C, South Cowichan Zoning Amendment bylaw 3625 Cobble Hill Road, 2019, for adoption.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion? Director Yanni DiNardo.
Is it not supposed to be A, B, and C?
Ooh. Oh, no, that's correct, because the zoning bylaw is different, because B's got their own, yeah, okay, great, nope, that makes sense. Call the question, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed, that motion carries. BEA 3.
CVRD bylaw number 4281, Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Saltum Glenora Zoning Amendment bylaw, C5 zone for 4450 Trans-Canada Highway, 2019, for first and second reading.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? I see none opposed. That motion carries. BEA 4.
CVRD bylaw number 4285, Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Saltum, Glenora, zoning amendment bylaw for 4005 Row Road, 2019, first and second read.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Salmon. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no items under resolution, so the next item is UB1, unfinished business, outgoing correspondence from the chair regarding the request for federal examination of vessel anchorages in the southern Gulf Islands.
These are for information, but I gather Director Smith has something on UB1. Director Smith.
Yes, thank you very much. I sent the letter along to others within the CVRD area that also have anchorages and have concerns. Their feedback was very beneficial. It did state they have concerns that the language in the letter doesn't include the whole CVRD areas that are in this. It relates only to Cowichan Bay. It would be nice also if we looked at the Islands Trust letter and worked with Islands Trust to make sure that there's solidarity with Islands Trust with similar language in the letter. I would ask that the letter be rewritten with those considerations taken in, and if assistance and coordination with the Islands Trust took place, I think that would be beneficial to all of us.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Your point?
Has this letter been sent?
The letter has not been sent.
It has not, okay, just checking.
Thank you, Director Smith. I'll go to, I was going to go to Director Stone, but I think I might go to Mr. Schumacher first as the subject matter expert on this item. Mr. Schumacher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if subject matter expert is appropriate, but my previous role with the Prince Rupert Port Authority have some experience with anchorage positions and understanding how the Transport Canada and Canada Marine Act is applied. I drafted this letter on behalf of the chair, and after doing some research, I wasn't quite aware that anchorage positions such as those in our area don't have the same pardon me, level of oversight as those within Canadian Port Authority's jurisdiction. I did review the Islands Trust Council statement and letter prior to drafting ours. And while I believe the only real distinction between the two is that ours does not go as far to call on the Minister of Transport to eliminate the anchorage positions, but rather supports in being involved in as a stakeholder, engaging with the federal government around a federal review and examination of the oversight around these anchorage positions that would incorporate a lot of the concerns that our constituents have and those of the Islands Trust residents that have been expressed in that letter. I think it's a much more reasonable ask to become a partner in those discussions with the Ocean Protections Plan going forward. It has a component in there called the Anchorages Initiative, which is to address this very issue in the lesser oversight of those anchorage positions. So I think there is current opportunities to possibly participate in that. So I would make the recommendation that the letter be sent as is.
Thank you, Director Stone.
Well, I've shared a lot of letters back and forth, and I've actually had the pleasure of conversing directly with the minister on this. And however, he has, how would you say, delegated this role of engagement around this issue to the Port Authority that's been tasked with it in the interim protocol, which is through the Vancouver Port Authority. I read the letter. Actually, I've realized that all of our Gulf Islands are actually considered Southern Gulf Islands, actually, from my investigation around this same issue. The letter is quite accurate based on what I've come to understand and know. I think that the difficulty is, as you read it, without the knowledge that I gained, it doesn't seem to speak to the issue that we have off of Saltaire or Ladysmith. The challenge is that if you want to talk about where the jurisdiction applies, Islands Trust has the strongest hold on any kind of input on jurisdiction there, because they actually do have some jurisdiction over the water bodies that surround the Southern Gulf Islands, which we do not. Sorry?
Director Stone, I'd caution you, please.
Caution me.
Closed session item.
Okay. Oh, I'm just talking about the prevailing law that's out there today. So anyway, I'm not speaking directly to any situation other than what I have written letters on before. That being said, I'm comfortable with the letter as it is.
Thank you, Director Stone. Director Seabrick.
Not being as familiar with this file as perhaps I should, I defer to some degree to Director Stone because he's done more work on this, but what stood out for me was the mention of only one community in our regional district in the context of this letter. Where's Saltaire? Where is off the shores of North Cowichan? We see them off Chemainus. We see them, it's more than just Cowichan Bay. And if there's a way that we can incorporate that to make it a stronger case that, we have, 50 miles of coastline in our regional district, and a good chunk of that is affected. It's not just Cowichan Bay. Now, I don't know whether there are jurisdictional questions there that Director Stone raises that may make it smarter for us not to put those things in there. I don't know. And there's a small grammatical point as well that I just wanted to make. I'm glad this letter didn't go out. Middle sentence of the last paragraph, the Cowichan Valley Regional Districts, plural, should be singular. A minor point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Sebring. Director Stone.
If we added an adjacent Vancouver Island coastline or something like that, it would cover it, because if you're saying around Southern Gulf Islands, that's consider all the waters that border our communities. It's not just Cowichan Bay, but if we added those communities and it was acceptable to the board, that's a minor amendment. I don't think it changes the intent of the letter in any way.
I don't think it does either, but it I think adds a little more heft, so.
Yeah.
Director Nicholson.
Yes, and I agree with that, and I also think that there's significant implications for the JUB outfall relocation in Cowichan Bay, and there's no mention of that, which I think should be, because where they're planning to put it, it's just like there's very little latitude around the outfall thing with the anchorages, so there should be, that is a concern, I think.
Yeah. Director Marsh.
I'm going to leave in a minute because I have a sick adult child at home, but I was going to suggest that we somehow quote, like for instance, North Cowichan has oceanfront of 42 kilometers. We just somehow let them know. But I trust Director Stone's language, so I'm fine.
I think
district
a
of-
very simple amendment to the wording to include the coastal areas and
Right.
would be more than appropriate.
So see you all on the 28th.
Director Yanni DiNardo, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to comment not to add the Joint Utility Board in on this discussion. The Joint Utility Board is doing all their work, and they understand all the anchorages. We've had a few presentations from them. Saanich Inlet Protection Society was a really good, and I have some paperwork on it as well.
Thank you. Mr. Schumacher, do you have the gist of what's being recommended that we add to this letter?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the reason Cowichan Bay is specifically called out in here is the direction to staff was to respond directly to the delegation that we heard, which was the Cowichan Bay Shipwatch Society, and that was their specific ask. So it's no trouble to amend it to reflect the broader region interests.
All right, so I don't know that we need a motion, but I'm assuming if we just add that verbiage, that it doesn't have to come back and can be sent with the appropriate wording. Excellent. So we will take care of that. There's UB2, that's for information. Any issues with that? That brings us to, there's no notice of motion, no new business.
Correct. On to question period.
Question period. Is there anybody in the gallery that might have a question for the board chair tonight? Or have you had enough? Have we worn you out, Cliff? Anything you'd like to ask? Fantastic. Be appropriate to consider a motion to adjourn. Moved by, seconded by Director Yanni. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. It's been a very long day, and we got an awful lot